structure of a leadership course is really a very different thing for different people. So if you're in a management institute, or if you're in a very formal educative place, leadership is and can be very much about what the books say. And it can be very much about how I work with the books. There's a bit of that. There has to be a bit of that because the theories are there. But this circle will tell you there's an awful lot more to the way that I am approaching this, and I hope you'll enjoy the way I approach it. So the first part is about looking at organisations, looking at getting the right people into organisations, because one of the things that people forget when they're talking about leadership is that if you've not got followers, you're not a leader. So getting the right people, and then very often that leads you, when you get the right people into an organisation, when you're developing an organisation, that leads to change. So we'll be doing some things on change. We'll be talking about management versus leadership. So what was Napoleon? Was he a manager or was he a leader? Well, he was a leader. He let Marshal Ney and he let his other marshals do the management piece, although they were leaders in their own right, and he led. So there is a difference. And some of you in your businesses are leaders, and some of you in your businesses are becoming leaders, and some of you are looking and saying, I want to be a leader. Well, that's the first part of becoming a leader. Many of us, and I would include myself in this, find management very much easier when we know the difference. So we will look at that. We're going to look at some different methods, and the methods I tend to focus on are going to be around becoming a coaching type leader or a mentoring type leader, and they are very different things. Coaching and mentoring are very similar and very different. And it's a style. And we'll talk about other styles, but the one I'll introduce you to is coaching and mentoring as a style of leadership. And that will lead us into working with teams, leading teams, being part of a team and being a leader in a team at the same time. And how do we get that to perform? Then it's about getting the best out of people. So we're part of a team. So we profess to be a leader of a team, but how do we get the best out of people? And then how do we develop those people? So we'll do something on this horrible, horrible word called networking. Now, a lot of us have networks and we don't use them. We see networks and we don't use them. Or we use them a bit when we need to use them. We'll be talking about using them a lot. And not just the cyber networks of LinkedIn or Facebook or that sort of stuff, but working the people that you work with for your benefit and their benefit. And that brings us into career and how do I use my network to advance myself, but how do I use my network to help and advance the people around me, so that if I am coaching or I am mentoring, I bring that networking with me. That brings us into developing others. And very often there's two sides to developing others. One is the plan. And I used to always love the planning piece. God knows there were people who were working for me that hated me because I kept on coming back with another plan. But people are very, very subtle. And every one of us has got pathways that we have in our minds, and we must help the people who work for us reach those pathways. So talking about the pathways of developing others. And that's both internally and externally, that's with teams, that's with networks, that's getting the right people, all those things together. Now sometimes, unfortunately, that means that we have to talk about people's performance and the gems that we have in the world, and the people who really, really think that they're doing great business and they need development. And that leads us into a special realm, which is developing a way of dealing with difficult conversations. Now, it's as difficult to have a proper conversation with someone who's really performing as it is to have a conversation with someone who's goofing off or who's losing it. So working those different conversations is important. And you say to yourself, 3 hours of that, well, 3 hours of that will pass faster than 3 hours of some of the other stuff I have to tell you. And we'll talk in another session then about succession planning. As I said, I work with family businesses, a lot of family businesses, and you have the entrepreneur, or small businesses, small, medium-sized enterprises, and you have the boss, and the boss is the leading light, and the boss is given the culture, and the boss is there. You'll see by these, my hands are actually over there, waving my hands here. But the boss has everything going for them, and the boss is hitting 50. And who comes after the boss? Or the partners are hitting an age because they started the business, and who's coming after them? So we talk a lot about succession planning. Now, these look to be discrete, but these things merge. All of these topics merge. So how do I go about it? So for each of the sessions, yes, there's some input. But I believe that people learn principally by talking to each other, by learning that they've got an awful lot of this stuff inside as part of the coaching thing. You've a lot of the answers, and you've a lot of the experience. And if I give you some method of talking about that experience, you'll learn faster. So there is some input, there is a lot of discussion, and there's a lot of sharing. There's not one of you who has not been recruited into something. There is not one of you that doesn't have a picture of your future. There's not one of you that is not looking forward. If you're on this course, you're looking forward. Now, some of us have our futures behind us, which is a very dangerous place to be. I don't believe any of us can afford to let that happen. So we will be sharing, we will be discussing. Some of it will be stylized, and certainly at the beginning of the course, until people get practiced in that sharing, it will be quite stylized and quite regular. But over time, I would suggest you're going to find it easier and easier to ignore the questions I ask you and ask the questions that are real. So that's sharing too. Do I have all the answers? No. You should ask my wife. She tells you I don't have half the questions, leave the answers out. But I think those answers are in the room. And I think those answers can be brought out from us by sharing. And then there's this thing called reflection. Now, this isn't a certified course. This isn't a diploma course. This isn't on the FETEC scale. I would like to think that at some future time it might be. And then I'm going to sign my name to it and start signing my own checks. But it's still about reflection. And it's still about finding some way of measuring what we're doing and what we're learning. So this is done in the hard part of this is done in two ways. The first is a reflective log. And I'll show you how that's done, how I expect to see it happen, how I think it'll happen, and then you'll take it away, and by session 3, you'll be doing it your own way, and I'll have to unpick that when I have a look at it later. But the object of the exercise is, you take the inputs, you take the sharing, you take the things you've learned as you walk out the door. And then there's another set of learning, you might not think so, by the time you get to the main door of this building. And when you're sitting in the car on the way home and you're listening to the radio, a little bit of light comes on, or a little bit of light goes off. Those are reflections, and capturing those on a regular basis, like a diary, but it's not, it's a reflective piece. We'll be looking at it. I'd be asking you to reflect before you arrive. So if you know what the next topic is, you'll have an idea of that. Reflect while you're here, and that's some part of catching the sharings that people are going on with, and then reflecting in your log when you've left here. That's one set of the assessment. The other set of the assessment is a 3,000 to 5,000 word, and we'll work out what it is that you need to cover. Because leaving here at the end of the 12 weeks, you'll be saying, I've either picked up huge amounts. I haven't listened to Paddy, but John or Philo, she's got it sussed, or he's got it sussed, and I've learned about leadership and management from them. With a framework, and the framework is what I hope to give you.